Hello, welcome back to my channel and to today's video where a slightly sweaty me is going to be discussing the trend aesthetic vibe that is coastal grandmother / coastal granddaughter. And to be honest, this is something that's been around for a long time. I've plucked everything on my rail here today from my own wardrobe, and I have managed to kind of make a capsule of coastal grandmother style pieces. So what I'm going to do today is run through the key pieces, the colour palette and the overall vibe of this aesthetic, and most importantly how you can achieve it on any budget. Right, I'm going to start off with the colour palette, but I had to get my hair off my neck because it is so warm today. It is humid here in the UK and it's not an atmosphere that we're used to over here. So I am struggling a little bit. I feel very moist. Very moist indeed. Right, let's start off with the coastal grandmother / coastal granddaughter colour palette. Okay, so it's a very muted colour palette, but the main colours are white, navy, pale blue and beige. But you can really expand on those neutrals and incorporate a whole host of beiges, off-whites, creams, and even including your earthy tones. So basically any neutral goes. Now, given that this is a coastal trend, blue obviously plays a big part in that. So again, a range of varying blue tones from light to dark. And then if we're talking about including some more occasional accent colours, a little hint of black, if you must, can be done with accessories. I personally prefer opting for a deep tan when it comes to accessories, just because it suits this aesthetic more, as you will see throughout the video. But then you can also inject in some other paler wishy-washy shades of pink, green, and even like pastel yellows. And then just one more thing I want to add before we dive into the key pieces, and you'll kind of see this through looking at the key pieces and the outfits that I'm going to put together. But the thing that I love most about this overall aesthetic, which I didn't even know was a specific aesthetic until recently, is that you can't get it wrong when you have like these certain pieces within this capsule of coastal style. Everything can be intermixed, and so therefore it's all very versatile. You can never get an outfit wrong. Right, let's now dive into the key pieces. And the first one that is probably the most integral, important piece of this aesthetic is a button-down shirt. I would say either linen. Linen plays a huge part in this aesthetic all the way through. Linen in general as a fabric is just a huge thumbs up. But a linen button down in this particular case is just such a versatile item, whatever your wardrobe style. But in the case of a coastal grandmother or a coastal granddaughter, it just embodies the whole look. So, button-down shirts. I've got a white one here. That is an absolute must-have. But then, as I said when I was going through the colour palette, you can also inject in your neutrals. You can inject in those accent colours, something like a really washed-out pale lemony colour. You can also, key colour here is a pale blue of some form. This is 100% a key piece within this aesthetic. And then you guys know me, and of course this is a huge part of coastal style in general, stripes. So a blue striped shirt is always something I've been like a big ambassador for. I've always said if you don't have a blue striped shirt, you should really get one because it is such a powerful piece within a wardrobe. So I've got a linen one here. I've already got another one on because I'm a big fan of a blue striped shirt. But then, and again, I was talking about this in the colour palette, got a pale pink and white striped shirt. So again, just injecting in those accent colours, those pale wishy-washy sort of pastels. Now, one last thing to mention about the button down, and this is why I found it so easy to collate this little collection here, is the fit. And the fit of the button down in this coastal grandmother aesthetic should be loose. It doesn't have to necessarily be so oversized that you feel like you're drowning in it, but fitted is not like the term that is used for this aesthetic at all. It's very relaxed, loose, light, floaty. So having something that's a little bit longer so that you can wear it untucked, definitely nothing sort of nipped in at the waist, just a nice sort of looser, more casual button down. And I am a big fan of those in general. They make up a huge part of my summer wardrobe every single year. I swear by them. Right, moving on to what I would say is probably the second most important key piece within this aesthetic, and that is the linen trouser. There's a lot of linen. It's just linen vibes. So the linen trouser, ideally, I would say, and again, this is my personal preference, but I think just the style that I'm about to mention fits in the best with this aesthetic, and that is a nice loose wide leg, full length, maybe with an elasticated waist if you like a buffet like myself, if you like to eat. But you could also, again, as I mentioned before, smarten it up with something a little bit more tailored. I'll try and fit some of those in the cutaways. In fact, actually, no, that's a lie. I've got one right here. I have a slightly more tailored linen trouser. Again, this would fit in perfectly. And that's just a little way to elevate it or just smarten it up a little bit. And along with the tailored linen trousers, I spoke earlier about how the old money aesthetic and quiet luxury can sort of cross over slightly. Chinos. Chinos very much fit into that sort of preppy style, and they are a really good way if you keep them very basic and maybe a little more on the looser side rather than the sort of classic slimmer fitting chino. These ones do have a looser fit to them. Then that is another good way to slightly smarten up or elevate within the coastal grandmother trend. And then sticking with bottoms, I'm going to touch on denim because denim 100% is a part of this aesthetic. But of course, staying away from dark washes and sticking with your super light bleach denim, if you're going to go for a denim at all, and then also any plethora of neutrals, whites, off-whites, ecru's, all of that kind of thing. So keep denim nice and light. And of course, we want to have some basics in there as well. So I haven't put any on the rail, but definitely basic t-shirts, basic vests. And again, in those core colours, your navy, your beige neutrals, white in particular. And then you can also add in some slightly different basics. So here I've got a slightly cropped navy and off-white long sleeve t-shirt, and it's got a boat neck. Very appropriate for a coastal aesthetic. But things like this are really sort of, again, they're basic, but they've got a little something extra to them, which when you're pairing them with other basic items like, you know, a white pair of linen trousers, it's easy to achieve a look that, and I might just be speaking for myself, but I always feel good when I wear any of these kind of things and I mix and match them together. It's never a case of me feeling like I have to work hard to create an outfit. These are really easy throw-on pieces, and basic doesn't always mean bad. I often think less is more, and so therefore with these easy basic pieces you can just mix and match a whole host of outfits, and as I said at the beginning of the video, they always work. One final clothing category within this coastal grandmother aesthetic is chunky but slouchy knitwear. Now, I mentioned in a video towards the start of the spring summer season that I was working on building up a cotton knitwear wardrobe, or a cotton knitwear collection for the spring summer months, and that is what I have got here. I've got some of my cotton knits which I have built up over the last few months. So when I say knitwear, and I know this is going to depend on where you live in the world, because granted not everyone is going to want to inject knitwear into their summer wardrobe, us Brits, Unfortunately, I was going to say unfortunately, but to be honest, right now I'm kind of glad that we have some cooler days because this temperature is not the one. But we always get to utilise knitwear in some form, even when it's light knitwear throughout the summer months, because we do have those cooler temperatures, sometimes in the morning and an evening, other times just throughout the whole of summer, because that's what happens here in the good old GB. So I've got a chunky jumper there in an off-white sort of cream colour, and then some other ones, again sticking to the plains in neutral colours, another neutral there, and they don't have to be super oversized, but definitely more on the slouchy side. I think it's more in keeping with this aesthetic. And of course stripes, because stripes fit in with any category. So that kind of concludes the clothing element. I'm gonna hop over to, what shall I hop over to? I'm gonna hop over to bags first of all and just touch on bags and then go into accessories a little bit. So one key bag that I think is really important within this trend and this aesthetic is a basket bag. Now I'm going to turn it round because I don't want the emphasis to be on the Loewe logo, because all the pieces that you will see on my rail, whether they be designer, I think actually most of them are high street apart from some of the bags, but they're all so basic. It's not about big logos or a specific t-shirt that you know is a certain brand. You know, it's not about that. So it's so easy to achieve this look on any budget, including all of the stuff that you've already got in your wardrobe. It's so easy to just pick out these little key pieces, maybe keep them to one side of your wardrobe, or if you've got a separate little rail, and then you can just get all them on rotation if you do like this kind of aesthetic. Stripes, more stripes. I bought this bag when we were in Mykonos. I clearly want to shout that from the world. Yes, this is the bag for any of you that watched my Instagram stories. This is the infamous bag that I won't go into right now, but if you missed it, there was a little funny story over on my Instagram, which is now saved to story highlights. I've got 2 for the cruise 1 and cruise 2, because I had so many stories I had to split them between 2 story highlights. So if you're curious to know the story behind this bag, head on over there and try not to judge me for it. But yes, big slouchy sort of beach bags, whether you're going to the beach or not, because this trend can totally be worn even if you live in a city. Now, as I keep liking to mention, adding pieces which are going to elevate the looks. So here I have the very common, and I don't mean that in a bad way, Longchamp La Pliage bags. And they're essentially like a nylon, it's like a nylon canvasy fabric. So it's very practical, which is why they're very, very popular as a travel bag. Just when we flew home from Rome and when we flew out to Athens recently, so many of these bags I saw in general at the airport and then on our plane and then when we landed. It is very much a European must-have to have a Longchamp La Pliage bag. I know it doesn't seem like a slightly more dressier bag, but it is a really good way to elevate a look and take it from less beachy. So that's that for bags. Let's do footwear next. Birkies. Birkenstocks are probably the most important shoe within this capsule wardrobe, within this coastal grandmother aesthetic. Birkies, and my personal preference for a Birkenstock would be in Arizona, specifically in suede. And they don't make lots of colours in the suede, but for me, I prefer the suede all day, every day over the oiled leather. Had a couple of pairs of the oiled leather ones and they just rub my feet. They're not soft enough. Whereas the suede I can wear from the moment I get them, and I never have any blisters or rubs or anything. So Birkenstocks, incredibly comfortable. Again, these are another European must-have. And then if you are going to add in more of like I don't want to call these trainers because they're not trainers, but they're almost like a bit of a deck shoe, then I would go for something in a canvas fabric that is very much fitting in with this aesthetic. So here I've got some Supergas in navy. I also have these in white. Someone asked me recently, do I rate these? Yeah, I mean, they're very basic. In terms of comfort though, the one thing I will flag is very much like a Converse, they are flat. So there's no arch support in there like you would get with a proper running shoe or a tennis shoe, you know, a New Balance, a Nike, Adidas, whatever. So they are flat footed, unless you wanted to put in a special insole. And then sandals wise, these I have added in more so just to kind of talk again about elevating an outfit. So these are my Hermes Oran slides. I've had these for years. So many years. They are still going strong. Yes, discard the fact that these are Hermes because you can get lots of different similar affordable alternatives from various different retailers, and I will list some affordable alternatives down below in the description box for anyone that just doesn't want to go hunt some out for themselves. And then finally, any little cherries on the top. So if you're going to do a hat, I cannot put this on. I'm just going to use it as a fan. I just cannot put anything additional on my head, so I've already got a lot of hair. But sticking to, in a similar way as the bags, sticking to those really neutral and natural textures, natural materials, your straws and any kind of natural materials in that sense. So fedora hat or a Panama hat, very, very useful to have, but also slightly less formal hats as well, something more casual. Your bucket hats, adding in some linen in there. I don't think I've ever seen a striped hat, but I mean, go for it. If you find a striped hat, stripes in any form work. Just don't go too crazy. I think the main thing to remember is to keep everything really pared back, really minimal, and by doing that, I know I sound like a broken record, but everything just works so cohesively and it saves so much getting dressed stress that it just makes life so easy. Right, there we go. I have made my way through everything on my rail. Hopefully you would have seen some outfit inspiration within the video that you might find useful. I did not so long ago actually make a coastal grandmother / coastal granddaughter reel over on Instagram. So there's also some additional outfits over on there as well. And yes, that is it from me for now, but thank you as always for watching and I will see you next time.